Okay, I'll call this meeting of the Board of Finance to order. Approve or amend the agenda. Second. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion's carried. Approve or amend the minutes of the previous meeting.
So move. Well, second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Carried. Brief report by the auditors.
I like that brief part.
Well, that's what you said, right?
So I gave you my brief summary.
Yes.
So we'll just go through it. I know you got a lot on your agenda. So it starts by just a quick overview of the audit sections. You have preliminary or not preliminary, but introductory narrative section. You have the core financial statement audit. You have the state grant compliance audit. Sometimes you have a federal single audit, but you didn't this year. And then you have another report that you honestly probably never see. And it's between us and the superintendent of schools and State Department of Education. That's called the EDFS. It's a test of the data that they upload through their electronic system. Highlights of the report, financial highlights. And I have indexed to the pages. Pages 11 and 12. If you ever look at those, are very highly summarized statements that include depreciation and numbers that actuaries determine. A lot of times town management doesn't spend a whole lot of time on those. Following those statements, we have the fund basis statements. So you'll see the general fund and then all the other large funds, and then the smaller funds are combined. You have a general fund balance of overall 6.1 million, of which 5.7 is unassigned. That is 44% of your budgeted revenues. That is high compared to other places that we see. We do see everybody's kind of high right now. In particular, they've been budgeting the use of the fund balance, but then investment return comes in way higher than budgeted. And so even though they've been budgeting use of fund balance, it hasn't been happening. One of the other large funds, capital non-recurring, that has 1.3 million in it that's already assigned to various projects, and about $500,000 that's not assigned to a specific project. Still have the Toby Hill Bridge Fund. It's near the end of its life. It did get a reimbursement from the state this year, an $89,000 deficit in that project that'll need to be funded. And then the other major fund was actually the child care fund. That had a deficit fund balance because it was waiting on grant payment from the state of Connecticut, which was then received after year end. So that has been resolved. But as of June 30, it's showing the negative deficit fund balance. I flip the page. Budgetary results for the year on page 16 of the audit. You had a 400,000 plus addition to the fund balance. I mentioned you budgeted to use it. You budgeted to use 350,000, and instead you ended up with a surplus of 400. That was a swing of about almost $800,000. That's the positive of what you were initially expecting. Tax collections were over budget. I mentioned investment revenues. I'm seeing that everywhere because we were in a period of 0.1% for so long. And then all of a sudden, it's 1% is 10 times what we were getting before. So some people getting 2, 3, 4. The stick was 5%, a little bit lower now. And then the expenses were overall under budget. After this budgetary statement, there's a lot of note disclosures because the further we go back, the more detail we see. So I just mentioned briefly, there was a capital assets. There's a table that shows the changes of capital assets. You didn't have any really new debt. You're just paying down some existing debt, things like that. We do have a colorful page, a bar chart with your fund balance, so you can see the 3-year trend. And I mentioned the numbers before. 5.7 unassigned, 395,000 is spoken for. That's generally what you're putting into the budget for the next year. Going on, page 29, still in the notes, we talk about your debt. You really only have, I think, 2 years left, 25 and 26. And so the year you're in now, you have a $34,000 payment, and then the next cycle, $10,000, and all your loans will be paid off. GASB standards require us to include the TRB plans, even though the town is not responsible for any of that. But people are interested in seeing that. So the portion of the state TRB pension plan that's attributable specifically to North Canaan certified teachers, $7.5 million. I mentioned here your responsibility is currently 0, but the state put in $726,000 specifically attributed to North Canaan's teachers. The OPEB liability, that's a health insurance subsidy. It's a lot smaller, so the number's a lot smaller. Mechanic put in $9,500 on behalf of your retired certified staff. Pages 42 to 45 is the detail of the budget. Back on page 16, we have a summary. This is the details. So you can see line by line of the budgeted versus actual and the variance. Outstanding taxes receivable, 2% of the levy, which is just a calculation we do when we're testing. 2% is good. A lot of towns were under 2. I shouldn't say a lot of towns. A number of towns, some towns were under 2%, and then they're ticking back up. So everyone was about 3%. COVID hit. It dropped below 2 because people weren't going to the movies. They paid their taxes. So less than 2% outstanding. It's starting to tick back up again. I'm see people at 2.2, 2.3. The statewide trend. Cities are always higher. Collection rate 98.5. State average is 98.7. We do that based on the state collects data from all the towns. The most recent study that they've published is from 2022. So numbers are getting a few years old. When I talk about the federal and state single audits, so these are like in addition to the core financial statement audit. As I mentioned earlier, you didn't have to have a federal one this year. So the threshold is $750,000 of federal sourced funds, even if it comes through the state. The school gets some. Bridge money is generally federally sourced. Sometimes some road money is federally sourced. You were at 701,000, so you were not too far off. ARPA, obviously, ARPA and ESSER were federal. Those are starting to tail off as those monies are spent and run out. That threshold is going up to $1 million, not for the year you're in now, but for the next year. So maybe that gives you a little bit of cushion to keep you out of that. Then you don't pay us to do the federal single audit, which is nice. And we honestly, the federal single audit is one of the toughest things to do. So we're always happy when we don't have to do them. State single audit, it's state of Connecticut has their own kind of mirror to the federal program. The thresholds are a lot lower, they're 300,000, so you're going to have it every single year. They're moving it to 500,000. You're still going to have it every single year. So you had about $3 million of state sourced funds coming from the state budget. Of that 3 million, 1.8 is ECS. Probably your next largest is always going to be County Road and Losit. Oh, I'm missing a page in mine. I'm missing the management comments. So we had page. Yeah, so in the I got it now, thanks. The state single audit. This is where you would have material weaknesses, significant deficiencies, non-compliance, all the real serious findings would be in here. But you'll see in all those check boxes are checked no. So there were no significant deficiencies, etc. But we do have a couple items in the management letter, which it even says in the management letter, these are items other than significant deficiencies, material weaknesses. but there are opportunities for strengthening, internal control and efficiency. Accounting manual, we've repeated this for at least a couple of years. The Board of Ed does not have a written policies manual, and we do recommend Board of Selectmen, Board of Ed, in every town, they should have written policies. One of the reasons is if somebody does something that you think is against the policies, but they're not written and adopted by the board, it's hard to enforce it. So we're always encouraging people as part of their controls to have them documented and approved by the board. And then the other comment we have, it's kind of funny because the comments in audits, they're trendy. One of the most current comments that we're having in our audits is tracking grant expenditures. Because when we come in, the town or any audit is supposed to tell us how much was spent on state money, how much was spent on federal money. And sometimes you end up spending money a year or two in advance of getting the reimbursement. So what we're recommending here is, because we found a situation where there was a grant that had been started to spend in the prior year. We didn't know that it was happening, so we didn't pick it up in the right year. This is happening more and more. I say it's trendy, I think in part because the state is slow to approve projects, and sometimes they're telling towns, just go ahead and start the project and we'll approve it later. So the town doesn't have an award letter in hand. That never used to happen. Happens more and more. DOT specifically will tell people to start design, start engineering with no award in hand. And so we don't even know federal money, state money, etc. But anyway, we're recommending in this town and other towns, we really need to beef up their process of tracking these grant projects even before the money starts coming in. Because it is town responsibility to tell us, town and Board of Ed, to tell us what grant projects are starting up so that we report them correctly and we know what we're supposed to include in that state single audit, what procedures we're supposed to do. So again, these are written, but they're not the ones inside the body of the report. So but they are in a management letter because we think it's important that you know about it and address them. That ends my brief presentation.
Very good. Any questions? Chris? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
These copies are all for you, the town, and for Buckland's office.
Really? I just want to check one thing on the auditor. We did the auditor's contract last month. We did, didn't we? Last month. We notified this, did we notify the state that King and King would be our order? What?
Did he bring the contract with him?
I don't even left.
Right,
Some-
I'll contact him.
Want to find out where it is?
Yeah. We didn't get the contract, that I know. There's no contract.
Right. But did you notify the state that
Yeah.
we, and that, just for everybody's information, there was like 8 letters we sent out to different auditors, and King was the only one that responded. Sam was gonna be late. Oh,
Here for you.
you're here.
I'm not Sam, but you got me tonight instead.
Yeah. Overview of the high school budget.
Perfect. Sam apologizes. We got the 2 town meetings tonight. Kent had their board of finance meeting tonight, so he is in Kent, and I am here to see. That's fine.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
I'll slump them here in the center in case anybody would like to Liza. Good evening, and thank you for having me tonight. My name is Melanie Brady Shanley. I'm Superintendent for Region 1. I will take you through our proposed budget the Board of Education has reviewed. So I want to kind of set the stage first to kind of give you an idea of what the state looks like right now. So CASBO is the Connecticut Association of School Business Officials. They collect from 178 different educational entities, and right now, as of today, the budgets that have been approved, that have been presented to boards of education, the average across the state is 5.42%. And then the average of approved budgets that Board of Eds have pushed forward to boards of finance is averaging 5.16. I think we can safely say that most of those drivers right now are attributed to increase in negotiated contract settlements. Or we used to be able to get away with anywhere between 11 and 12% on average. There are upwards of 13 and 14% arbitration agreements at this point. The other big driver is benefits across the state. You know, we came in just shy at 9.99% for benefit increase. And then, you know, if you have a 150,000 square foot house, you know what your electric bill looks like in your own home. Multiply that by one that's 154,000 square feet, and you can see that utilities are definitely a large driver in our budget. So what you're going to see, I'll start with the end in mind so that you can have an idea. Overall, you know that the high school budget is divided into 3 different sections. Divided into the high school itself, our pupil services, and then the RSSC, which is the Regional Service Center. We, across those 3 entities, have a $794,000 increase proposed, and that represents a 4.49%. When we started the budget conversation in January, December-January timeframe, we were at 8.3%. So we have done a lot of work to be able to scale the budget back, and hopefully you'll be able to see that throughout the presentation. When it comes to revenue right now, our largest revenue driver is obviously our ag department, but there's particular restrictions on those funds because they can only be utilized for agriculture programming. The other area where we can potentially see revenue is off of pupil services. We have the education cost or the excess cost legislation. So if we have a student who is unable to be serviced within inside our auspices of the town or region, if we spend 4.5 times the per pupil expenditure, the state provides us with a percentage of reimbursement back. So that's where sometimes we see a revenue back from the state for pupil services. Overall, though, what we're seeing at the high school level, we have a revenue in stream of $7,181 as an increase. We have a $19,115 increase at pupil services, and our interest income, again, kind of driven by what the market is right now, is projected to go down by about $5,500, give or take, there. So if you flip onto the next page, this is really where it kind of starts to become centralized around North Canaan. So North Canaan right now, you can see your enrollment projections for the 24-25 school year that we're in. We have 108 kids that represent that role. So what you will see is across that represents across our 100% percentage here, you holding 35.29% of our total population for the high school. Flipping on to the next page, we break this up for pupil services, the high school, and the RSSC. So your portion of the North Canaan for pupil services actually will decrease from this year to what the projections look like for next year. And that decrease in percent is just a few hundredths of a percent. But because of the numerics of the budget, it ends up being a small overall assessment increase on pupil services from 1.3 million to 1.466. And then carrying that over to the RSSC. Again, you're seeing that overall percentage increase based upon enrollment. But with the RSSC, you're seeing that your increase for 24-25 to 25-26 will move from 323,000 to 343,000 for North Canaan. So what does that all play out? You know, I know this budget is confusing because of all the different components that play into it. What that does play out though is that your total member assessment for North Canaan. So for the high school before allocations, starting at the left there, was 3.0 million. Then adding in pupil services of 646,000. The RSSC is 147. That brings the high school total to 3.8. Then you add in the total for pupil services, which is the 1.4, and then the RSSC total, and that brings North Canaan's total membership assessment to 5.6 million. You have questions about that? I know those are a lot of numbers that I just flew through. I'm going to get down kind of into the details of those numbers here a little bit. Are we okay so far? Okay. You talk about budget drivers, and I kind of highlighted a lot of those, but specific to North Canaan, your high school enrollment, you have some enrollment shifts projected coming up. So in North Canaan in 2023, which we always use October 1st of every previous year to set our enrollment, you had 102 students. So this is based off of 108 students. When it comes to pupil services, which represents K-12 or K-22 essentially, and then the RSSC, which also represents the whole gamut, we went from 246 students representing North Canaan across the region to 245. So there was a dip of 1%, or one student, excuse me. So our percent budget increase at a 0%, we were already ahead $186,000. The starting point for North Canaan ended up being a negative 3.4%, simply because of some decreases in overall percentages. Any questions on that? The next just really is a detailed census of your enrollment shifts from year to year. So I'm not going to get into that unless you have specific questions on that. So this fiscal year that we're currently in right now, we are projecting that we will have about $176,000 that we will be able to impact and put off for the 25-26 budget. Some of the things that we are looking to be able to use some of the remaining funds in this fiscal year for would be to offset the cost of softball dugots and scoreboard stanchions at a cost of $63,000, IT equipment at $50,000, general maintenance at $40,000, math equipment, specifically smart boards and scientific calculators, for about $12,000, and then science equipment, specifically veneer probes and projectors, at $10,500. So those will hopefully not be pushed off into the 25-26. We can utilize funds from this year to be able to pre-purchase. So when it comes to the object codes and the series that we're looking at, we know that the salary increase from 24-25 to 25-26 for salary increases at the high school is going to be about $103,000. The benefit increase, because we did have 9.9% benefit increase for health and 6.99% for dental, is $61,000. For purchase services, we saw an increase of $88,000, supplies $78,000, and property services at $42,000. Now you see that there is a reduction of $219,000. There is debt service that is coming off of the books at the end of this year. So that debt service will not be carried into the 25-26 school year. So it is done at the end of this fiscal year, which I'm really pleased about. The next is just kind of a graphical depiction of that information. And then these are really, I'm not going to get into all of these, but I'll hit the high points on some of the the budget drivers for the high school. We were able to negotiate a 3-year contract with the teachers. that ended up at 13.2%. The non-certified contract increases were 3.8% GWI plus step. And then because we had a retirement at the high school, one of the things that we're looking at across the board is anytime we can kind of look at that natural attrition, it gives us an opportunity to kind of look at our numbers and say, what do we need moving forward? So we did have a retirement at the high school. When we looked at the world language, we were able to reduce one full FTE, full-time equivalent position, and still meet all of the academic needs of the students within the school. So we did propose that position not be filled for next school year. We have the SRBI coordinator position, which was roughly around $16,000. We zeroed that out because that's being covered under different other educational entities, so it's not a harm to do that to students. You already heard me talk about what the big numbers were for benefits. Under purchase services, Sam really wanted us to talk about tonight. We the general maintenance under purchase services here is what has kind of caused some drivers that were maybe unexpected from when there was an architectural review and when they were in the planning. So there were mini split installation in the ag classrooms, the metal shop refurbishment. We had masonry repairs, column replacements, and floor repairs on the second floor. So those were some of the purchase services there. The other thing in terms of utilities, over the summer, and this was before my tenure, they had purchased window units for all of the high school classrooms because there was an issue regarding the heat level that was in the classrooms. So they purchased that. Mind you, we're not running them in the summertime when students are not in those classrooms, but when we are running them, we are seeing a significant increase in the utility costs associated. We also have air conditioned the auditorium and the cafeteria as part of the large renovation project at the high school. So this is kind of the first time we're starting to see the impact of those renovations on the facility when it comes to utility costs. In terms of supplies, you heard me talk about the electricity. This past October, our agreement with Eversource, we had a consortium pricing on our purchasing of power. So it was about 8.5% roughly. When we did the new consortium pricing going into December there, it ended up off the top of my head, I want to say it was a 10.5% kilowatt per hour charge. So there was a increase across that. We weren't able to secure the same rate. And then the other piece of that is one of 3 debt services being completed at the end of this fiscal year, which will be coming off the books and certainly beneficial. So I'm gonna skip past pages 16, 17, kind of 18. The funding on page 19. So we receive about $773,000 in federal IDEA funds for students who have special education needs. So that is a revenue to us. So we are utilizing $531,000 of that for support of certified teaching positions, along with the purchase of paraeducators. We have $156,000 going into student support services, and those are special programs being supported for students. Transportation of $38,000, and then instructional supplies of $36,000. So we wanted to let you know about this. There's rumors going around everywhere right now. No one really knows what direction, in terms of the federal government and education funding will be or where it's going. But we did want to bring up the federal funding aspect of, should for some reason federal funding be reduced, we stand to lose about $773,000. That would be the general impact that we would see. So nothing right now that we need to be concerned about, but just for your own edification moving forward, having a knowledge that that. And then that's just a reiteration on page 20 and 21. So when you look at the RSSC budget highlights, there was a increase there slightly. One of the things that we saw around individuals with insurance benefits, we had 9 individuals that changed their insurance plans from this past June, July, when open enrollment had ceased. So we have never seen historically 9 individuals within one enrollment period switch. So that really drove up the cost of our benefits. And what you're going to see overall is that our benefit cost is actually up percentage-wise higher than our salary costs because of those 9 individuals who went from potentially no plan or a single plan to a 2-person plan onto a family plan. And then lastly, it shows you the overall between the high school, the people services, and then the regional service center. What the totals are by the big bucket areas, if you will, salary, benefits, purchase services, supplies, property, and other, and how they equal out to 100% of the budget. And then on the next page, page 24, that's a graphical depiction of where those drivers are and what category they fall under, whether that's the high school, people services, or the regional service center. And then that last column on the far side where it says other, and you see that nice decrease, that's the debt service that came into the books. And then certainly, last but not least, just giving you a really in-depth picture of grade level enrollments at the high school, year by year and town by town. And happy to answer any questions, and any questions that I may not be able to answer, I will certainly write down so that I can have Sam follow up with you. So I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
No.
Would you just give the dates of, you know, or if you know, when the public hearing will be?
Yeah.
Because this will be the only time that your budget will be presented in North Canaan.
Okay, so the draft proposal we already did to our Board of Ed, that was on March 3rd. On April 10th, which is a Thursday at 6:30, we have the draft budget proposal that will be presented at the public hearing that's located at the high school. So that's Thursday, April 10th at 6:30. And then it'll go to region-wide referendum on Tuesday, May 6th from 12 p.m. to 8 p.m.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have another copy if anybody else, welcome to my copy if you want it.
Okay. We now have overview of North Canaan Elementary School. And before Beth, oh, you can come up, Beth. And then Brian will come up. But we plan on having some workshops, so if you want to just go over briefly your budget, and then we'll get down to the when we do the workshops. This last year's.
So very much like the,
You sit over the microphone up there.
just want me to close it?
Hey, want to take a seat here? Have a seat right here.
Very much like the high school budget and the regional budget, the North Canyon Elementary School budget is driven by salaries, negotiation contracts, and utilities. So that's where you're going to see the biggest increases. The teachers just finished up their contract negotiations in the fall, and the 3-year contract will step every year about 4% per year. Last year, during the budget season, the non-cert staff was in the middle of their negotiations, so they finished after, and they finished out at about 4% per year for the next 3 years. So those numbers, and they also negotiated out a step in their pay scale. So there was an initial rate, a job rate, and a working rate, and they dropped that middle part. So it just goes initial pay and then working rate after. Again, same as the region, we were at 10.5, we did, but 9.9% for health insurance. And then an increase in dental. The staff annuities looks a little bit higher because with the non-certified staff, once they reach, I believe it's 2 years, they get their annuity, and it just happened that quite a few of our non-certified staff reach that point, so the annuities went up a little bit, which is good because they're staying. Page 2. On page 3, we really tried to keep things within the range that we already had, and so we're working on the budget that we set. In terms of special programs, overnight programs went down a little bit because we have less of our students going to the nature classroom program next year. Our 5th grade is very small. Teacher course reimbursement is more because we have more teachers right now who are going back to school. We are currently opening at 5 teachers going back, and we pay for 6 credits per year for each of the teachers that are. We put the student position line back in because we have a regional position that consults with the nurse. Everything is there. I'm gonna show. Water and sewer, and we tried really hard last year. They zeroed out the garbage collection, and we tried. And to no fault of ours or the town crew or anyone else, there was just too much garbage and too many bears. And we couldn't figure out a viable solution to get the garbage to the dump quickly enough. And we did end up, Brian and I talked a lot and decided that the safest and most, the best thing to do is to reinstate. And the only people that we can get here are USF. We tried everyone else, and apparently if you are a garbage collector, you can corner the market and no one else is allowed to come and even get your garbage. Electricity, we upped quite a bit because we also put in 15 mini splits last year, and our rate increased. Right now, we're probably going to be above the 58,000. We're not using the mini splits now, but they are used in the summer. Everything else on there is pretty, building service contracts is up a little bit, but that was just increased in contracts. The bus was another negotiated contract that went up. Everything else on page 5, I believe, summer school is up because they talked earlier, the auditor was talking about the ESSER funds, and those were helping to offset the cost of summer school, as well as a grant from Berkshire Taconic Foundation, thank you. And they've reduced that grant as well, so we have to pick up more of the cost of summer school. Page 6, we walked in for heating oil. This was about the same. We're right on target this year for heating oil. I think everything else on page 6 is the same. Page 7. We also got the same. And just so you know, we did have a budget workshop at the board. We've really had a lot of conversations, and I don't know if you were in the last year or not. We had talked about the fact that right now we have been running with one less teacher, that we would need another teacher going into this school. So we have 3 people retiring, and the thought was we would need to hire 4. And a lot of number crunching and conversations, we realized that we can probably run next year with 1 early K and 1 kindergarten. So we're losing 3 and only replacing 3. So initially, when we were looking at losing 3 and replacing 4, we were at a 9% increase. And in looking at numbers and forecasting students coming into kindergarten, we're doing our registration a little bit earlier this year for kindergarten. We have a pretty solid idea of how many students we'll have. We won't be adding that extra position. So you'll see at the end, that puts us at 6.05. And then with the high school increase at 1.27, puts us at 3.41%. Total of about 345.
We were going to set up workshops where you could come back after this board has had a chance to look at the budget. And then ask any questions and then go over it one more time. If, so it's either gonna be March 26th, April 2nd, or April.
He said March 26th to April.
Or April 2nd or April 10th. We haven't decided. I wanna make sure that everyone on this board can make it. Which day is best for,
I can do the second or the tenth.
April 2nd's good for you?
Yeah, either the second or the tenth.
Are you having school in the town the same night?
We don't have to. Would you rather do another night?
I can do the second as well.
April 2nd? Does April 2nd sound all right for everyone?
Yeah, yes.
Joe?
What time do you
Huh?
normally have a call?
Okay. So you'll just, if you have any questions, can,
I'll let you know ahead of time.
okay. So April 2nd it is at 7 PM. That'll be a workshop. And so that board members can take a look at your budget and now with the Board of Education budget, the Board of Finance only can ask you to cut a bottom line. We can't go individually, whereas with the selectmen's budget, we're allowed to go line by line. Okay, thank you.
No, I just.
Okay,
I would just like to say before you start that no member of the Board of Finance has seen this budget prior to you handing it out tonight.
Correct.
I just want to make that clear.
All right, good evening, everyone. My name is Brian Oler. I'm the first selectman of the town, if you don't know who I am. As of last night, the Board of Selectmen met to vote unanimously on our proposed municipal budget for the upcoming fiscal year. And with that, we'll begin our presentation. So the theme last year with our budget, with basically 2/3 of the administration coming in being new, we wanted to essentially hold the line on as many expenses as we could. So it gives us a chance to really understand the history of each line, understand past expenses going back 3 or 4 years, looking at different revenue options and seeing, is there opportunity for operating efficiencies? Are certain line items a little stale in a sense, or, can we basically do more with less? Looking at the transfer station, the town crew, a lot of different areas. So last year, we were happy to come in with a negative budget by holding the line. Transitioning to this year, having more institutional knowledge, understanding where the majority of our costs are originating from. We still wanted to, reduce pretty drastically where we could, which would ultimately mean a savings. And there's, I think, some modest increases is a good word for some lines, just because they've been underfunded for years past for a number of reasons. You're gonna see some salary line increases that really needed to happen because North Canaan historically has been one of the most underfunded towns when it comes to salaries for their workers. So you'll see that in there. So that's kind of the overview. So starting at the top with the selectmen salaries and the executive assistant salaries and general supplies. You're gonna notice a steep change from last year. So Selectman Bunce opted to reinstate his salary of $6,500. Myself, I opted to reduce my salary by $24,000. So I, along with Selectman Bunce and Selectman Whiting, will all be receiving $6,500 annually across the board. The executive assistant salary increased by 4%. Probate court fees, that's a reduction of $285 based on proportional share from the regional grand list. Town election expenses, the reduction of $1,400 from the prior year, and it may be reduced if we don't have a primary this year. Obviously, with the early voting, the costs last year were pretty significant. We did have a primary last year, which meant more days to staff. I think our registrars did a really great job trying to organize all the poll workers and ensuring that all the hours were covered. But essentially, whether you are for early voting or not, it was an unfunded mandate from the state because they gave us $10,000 last year, but nothing going forward. So we have to pony that up. Town and school audit fees, the auditing services is up by $9,000. An increase of $4,000 in auditing extras, and that's only if there is a federal audit. As Chris mentioned tonight, last year we didn't have the federal audit, so we are seeing modest savings this year for that. Down to the assessors block, there's a slight increase of $300 for books and NADA, and a reduction of $525 in contract services. Tax collectors block, everything remains the same across the board. There was no increases or reductions. Treasurer's line, a slight reduction in the salary of $2,000. Down from 27,000 to 25,000. Town clerk salary block, everything remains the same except a reduction in the assistant town clerk's salary line of $3,200. We now have a second assistant town clerk in Paul Mattingly, who's already employed here on a regular basis, Monday through Friday. So he's picking up a lot of hours and already making an hourly wage. So we're happy to have that efficiency. And a noted $1,000 increase in state fees for the town clerk's block. Town hall cleaning block, we're in A016, a reduction of $2,000 in town hall maintenance. We feel that's a modest savings that we can pay. Insurance expenses, Emily's confident in a reduction of $10,000. Sorry, there's an extra zero on there. It's $10,000. A019, health, dental, and life, a reduction of $12,500 on that line. Full-time employee retirement, slight increase of $2,000 for employee pension. Canaan Fire Company distribution, which is their operating contribution, that remains the same. The fire marshal's block. He just requested a slight increase of $275 for education dues and service, and a slight increase of $125 for equipment. As all of you know, we have a new resident trooper. Spencer Bronson is at a lower pay scale than Jeremy was. So the reduction there is about $20,000 roughly from Jeremy to Spencer. So there's a pretty significant, I'm sorry, it's a $27,713 reduction in the salary line. And he did request $750 be reinstated to his general supplies budget for the various items. Building official salary, clerk wages. Our clerk has, next year she'll be with us for 20 years officially, and she's only been making $22.82. Given her commitment in that office and basically being the glue to that office between building officials and building inspectors, working with the CEO, working with Torrington Area Health. I would like to bring her wage up to a flat rate of $25 an hour, which is only an annual increase of $2,474. And there's a need for building software support and maintenance, which is a contractual increase of $1,500. Traffic lights, no increase,
You missed the dog pound.
no increase. Fire hydrants have a reduction of $3,000 from Aquarion. E911 is our emergency dispatching, which is Litchfield County Dispatch based out of Torrington. They presented their budget a couple weeks ago. Thank you, Brian, for sending that over.
You're welcome.
It's based on the census per DPH. So our increase for next year is $1,211. Town garage expenses remain the same. Road and bridge repair remains the same. The highway department overtime, that is a slight increase of $5,000. And that is due to their contractual increase of 4% that they're all getting. And a reduction of $6,000 for sand and salt. This is a savings that we believe we can achieve because we had 2 deliveries of salt right at the end. We could get some weather this weekend, but our salt bin is filled to the point where even if we had to use some salt for November, December, we feel we have enough to get through to January 1st. So it's about $8,000 to $9,000 per delivery. So since we are basically have a stockpile of salt, we can save that initial cost next year. Tree removal expense, we're down to C006. That's an increase of $3,000. Trees are dying everywhere on our local roads. It really doesn't matter what the species is now. It's really become a hazard. Eversource is doing their work along the lines, but on the other side of the road, it's all town responsibility. And we're doing what we can with the town crew, considering their safety, but we do contract out most of our tree removal expense. Historically, it's always been $17,000, and I'd like to move that up $3,000 to an even $20,000. And again, the highway wages was $5,000 for their contract they unionized last year. LoSiP, we do have to put a cost in this year to include the amount that we receive, so it's $42,940. Gas and diesel expense remains the same. Recycling remains the same. Transfer station operating expenses, this is really a high point in the town. I think in the last year, there's been such a change in a good way down there, from overall operating efficiencies to savings with bulky waste. And talking with Kate and Brian Carlson down there, they're confident, even though we saw savings significantly last year, we can chip away even more this year. So we're going to reduce the operating expenses by $10,000. Transfer station wages, we're going to give a 4% increase to the full-time staff, which is Kate and Brian. Well monitoring is a slight increase of $100. And all of the costs to remove garbage, hazardous waste has stayed the same. For bulky waste, we are asking for a reduction of $30,000 due to the improved efficiencies in handling bulky waste. So we went from 80,000 last year down to 60, and year to date right now we're almost 3/4 of the way through the budget for that line, and we budgeted 60,000 last year. We're only at 18,000. So we feel 30,000 is more than reasonable. And I just want to kind of paint a picture because it is a high point again. So, before it used to be one massive pile of bulky waste. There was furniture, mattresses, you name it. And that obviously contributed to all the cost to get rid of it when it was saturated in the water. They're now in containers. They're covered with a tight canvas, keeps the water out, and that reduces the weight. But if you've ever seen Brian Carlson down there, if somebody ever delivered a sofa, He literally rips it apart with his bare hands, puts the vinyl and the foam in the container, puts the clean wood that's in the inside, the big pile to burn it, and takes all the metal framing and puts it in the metal container, so we get the money for the recycling. You know, it's just a cyclical effort that is really benefiting the town. Area health district costs, a slight increase of $98 due to population change. Ambulance personnel, we're at E005, ambulance personnel incentive and distribution. There's a reduction of $250 in the ambulance incentive program. And they've asked for a $20,000 increase to their operating budget. Thank you to Emily and thank you to Matt for presenting your P&Ls. Obviously, being a hybrid ambulance corporation, there's obviously significant costs. It's impossible, and I think kind of negligent of us to ever compare the ambulance to the fire department, considering call volume, considering the advanced life support program, paramedics that they have, and considering that reimbursements aren't always timely. Sometimes it can be 6-8 months before they see any type of reimbursement. It's significant. So I think their $20,000 request is more than justified. Local relief is a reduction of $2,500. That's basically going to be recouped in the discretionary fund. Gearbus is the same. Social services wages are the same. Sharon hasn't asked for an increase. Housatonic Youth Service Bureau is the same. Women's Emergency Services is the same. There was a slight increase for Litchfield Hills Nutrition, Meals on Wheels, with $279. And we were able to give Chore Service an increase of $1,500. They've been at $2,000 for the last 8+ years. And they really do have a significant client base in town. Douglas Library, they asked for a slight increase of $4,260 for overall operating funds, which we obliged. Memorial Day Fund, Little League's the same. Town Recreation, they did get pretty crafty with their requests this year. They did a great job moving some funds around. There were some increases in events and activities, porta potty costs, and the pool salary line. And I'll just go line by line. So $4,400 was the requested increase for pool salaries. And that's due to extended hours and the minimum wage going up. So they're trying to extend schedule the opening of the pool, open up early, maybe close later. So to capture all of those hours, that was the increase. A $500 increase for the use of water, $500 increase for repairs, $2,500 in events and activities due to transportation changes with ski trips, and a $600 increase for porta potties. The Scout building is the same. Railroad Days, which is the events committee, remains the same. Contingency costs, childcare, contribution, beautification committee, all holding the same. Wagner Village is the same. CCM, which is the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, has a reduction of $1,000. Justified from their request. Wetland expense is the same. Housatonic River Commission is the same. That's $400. Rural transportation, which is Northwest Connecticut Transit, we have a reduction of $550 per their request. Zoning is the same. Town historian supplies is the same, except a modest reduction of $400 for the Rohrbach building, and that's our loan that we currently have out right now. All right, and this brings us into our capital non-recurring funds. Had a great talk with Mike Foley, our fire chief. The operating fund right now, or the allocation from the town, is $130,000. He feels that's certainly doable for them, in addition to the fundraising that they do. He has pleaded significantly in years past to increase the truck fund, because in about 7 years, the ladder truck is due to be replaced, which could be between $2.2 and $2.5 million to replace and get the specs that they're really looking for. We are just shy right now of $1 million in that truck fund. So the truck fund year after year has been 85,000. He requested 140,000. And it would bring, keep that consistent up through the next 5 or 6 years. I told him that's a big jump for us to take in one budget year. So we're requesting a $40,000 increase in that line item to go from 85,000 to 125,000. And we'll see what next year brings if we can get to that 140 mark. He was grateful for that. And town equipment, we just put in a reduction of 7,000. Everything seems to be holding strong right there. We will have a conversation later about the one truck that needs to be replaced. But between everything they've got over there, we felt that was a sensible reduction. And all the other non-recurrings are held at 0 or no increase. And for a grand total of $3,227,232, which is an overall reduction of last year from $15,704.
Any questions for? For now, or April 2nd, you can have your questions. After you review it at your leisure. Thank you, Brian. So I'll need a motion for April 2nd. So move. Do a workshop. And then we'll decide after that April 2nd meeting if we need another one or not. For your second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carry. Motion to approve the tax collector's report.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Okay. Treasurer's report.
So move.
Second.
I'll second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Selectmen's time. I guess you just took it.
I just want to thank everyone for their input. School, all the organizations, the board, Emily, thank you for all your hard work. Selectman Bunce, Selectman Whiting, he's virtual. Some tough conversations, but I think it's a budget that we can all lean on. Kudos to Emily for another great audit this year. It's probably her last audit she has to go through, so she's smiling. But thank you all for your partnership.
Board members' concerns?
Good.
Okay. Public comment.
I have a question.
Okay.
Do we have a, budget for the income side of the,
Income side of
oh, yeah.
the revenue side? Yeah, that's in the town report or the right?
Yeah, you have to have a set amount, like, we have to have total expenditures before I can come up with the revenue thing. It'll be shown when we get.
Oh, Emily, is that because you need to know that before the state, you find out what the state gives?
No, I know what the state's gonna give us, I'm just gonna be playing with numbers, if they say town has to go down, the school has to go down or go up or whatever, I'm playing with numbers, so until we say, okay, everybody's good, we're not gonna go back to the workshop, then I create.
Oh,
the-
okay. All right. Thank you.
And it'll be there at the lowest.
Anyone else? Okay,
Motion adjourned.
here a second.
Awesome.
All right. Well, any discussion? There is none on adjournment. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Thank you all for coming.